Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's 10:10, so we'll get started. I just want to share my screen really quickly here, and we're going to get started on the grower panel. I'm Cindy Finiseth, and I'm with the Kentucky Horticulture Council, and delighted to be moderating this first panel today, and it's featuring Kentucky specialty crop growers. And our growers showed extreme durability this last season, resiliency, innovation, just amazing things that we saw from our growers. And in this panel, we'll hear from three of the different perspectives about how they adapted and innovated during COVID, and also how these changes are going to shape the future of our local food systems. As we go along, I'll drop some links into the chat that you can reference and learn more about the individual farms and organizations that you'll be hearing about. And please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A for our panelists, and we'll cover as many of those as we possibly can. First up is Michelle Howe. She's the owner of Need More Acres Farm in South Central Kentucky. In addition to farming, she is certainly a champion for food security and access, and tirelessly advocates for beginning farmers, local food entrepreneurs, and consumers. And she does that through community organizing, public speaking, and in lots of other ways. She's a founding member of Community Farmers Market in Bowling Green, Kentucky, the south central part of the state. And that market is well known for very vibrant programs that connect local producers to local consumers. So Michelle, please tell us about some of the pandemic pivots that you took this last season.
Yeah, so I just wanted to start real briefly by just letting people know that just a little bit about our farm. So we are a 20-acre farm in Scottsville, Kentucky. My husband Nathan and I are full-time farmers. And we grow primarily fruits and vegetables, a little bit of protein, but it is primarily fruits and vegetables. You can go to the next slide. I wanted to start also by just saying real quickly that I wanted to kind of show people where we have come from, just because I think sometimes that gets lost in context when somebody's talking about where they're at right now. So from 2007 to 2012, Nathan was working for the University of Kentucky, primarily helping tobacco farmers transition to fruit and vegetable crops. We had 4 kids under the age of 6 in 2007, and we were wanting to just make ends meet, basically pay property taxes. And so we started growing heirloom tomatoes for the farmers market. We would attend the market about 6 to 8 weeks a year, if that. Soon after that, we started selling watermelons to the schools. You can see that in the right photo. That just kind of happened by chance. The food service director happened to stop by a little roadside sale we were having of watermelons and asked if she could buy some for the schools. We started making our deliveries. In that first year, the schools did not have knives to cut the watermelons. And so we've really come a long way in the school systems when it comes to food prep. So I have to remind myself of that. But in 2013, for several different reasons, you can switch to the next slide, we decided to become full-time farmers. Nathan and I felt like we had been part of the food system for many years, and we had really been paying attention to a lot of the things that were just talked about in the previous discussion. And we felt the best way that we could make a difference is by farming ourselves. So in 2013, we did that with a CSA. We had 45 members. It was sort of a multi-farm CSA. The need for that was there because at that time, Community Farmers Market did not have cheese, milk, and some of the other items we were putting in the CSA available at the market. In that first year, we had some lessons learned that I think really prepared us for the work we've done in the last year with the pandemic pivot. In that first year, we were doing a lot of ordering. We were giving our customers a lot of options, pickup locations, what they could put in their CSA. We were letting them do ordering each week. we had a lot of rollover in the CSA. So we were reaching people who might see it on social media and be real excited in the moment, try it for 3 months, and then kind of be over it. And we were doing a lot of organizing between the farmers we were partnering with and our customers. All of those things did not fit within our strengths. Nathan and I are not regular cell phone users, and just it was not really meeting the strengths of our income or what we felt like we could really invest our time in. So on the next slide, you'll see in 2014, so the very next year, we completely transitioned the entire farm. K-Card helped us with this. We surveyed all of our customers, potential customers, and we realized that we had about 10 CSA customers at the market that were really, really interested in buying our $35 fruit and vegetable share. I will say 8 of those 10 are still members of that CSA. But we also realized that there was a group of people kind of like us that wanted to eat mostly local, like 85% or more local, but they needed it to be really, really convenient. And so that was when we started our all-you-can-eat CSA. So about 40 to 50% of our income comes from those 20 households. So 10 buying the CSA at the market that they do a pickup, and then 10 with the all-you-can-eat. And what this did is it really helped us play into our strengths as farmers. We farm year-round. We grow a wide variety of diversity of product year-round. We're in leadership at the farmers market, and it was difficult for us to be constantly taking part of that CSA share from the market while also being leaders. So by decreasing our CSA down to 10 people, that opened up opportunity for other farmers to start their CSAs and expand them. It also really played into the strength of sort of the emotional labor that Nathan and I are both very interested in partnering on. I'm seeing a comment about, are we back, and that they see a blank screen. I don't know if that's everyone or just one person. So Nathan and I both we feel like it's very important for farmers to be investing in partnerships, outreach, and education. That's just something we believe has been really helpful to our farm. The other thing about this transition was that it allowed us to support other farmers even more. So we actually spend about $100,000 a year with other farmers in our community to make these 2 CSA options work. So the next slide. So when the pandemic hit, it was about this time a year ago. I wanted to share this first off because this was an absolute success story for our farm, I believe, in our community. We have a really good working relationship with the Mennonites. What a lot of people don't realize is they have in Allen County, right down the road, there's about $1 million a month in local food going out to institutions in Kentucky. They do not promote or advertise that as local, and a lot of people don't even realize that it's local. So we have a really good working relationship with them. There are a handful of Mennonites who are growing directly to restaurants and in different institutions by themselves. And in this one example, there were some restaurants in Nashville that had ordered 30,000 carrots. And when the pandemic hit and they had to close down, they had nowhere to put those carrots. And when we were contacted about that, my immediate thought was, if there's a time for us to prove that local food works, this is it. And at the time, I was also having people from the school systems and different people reaching out to me because they were unable to get local food or fresh food. I shouldn't say local. They weren't able to get fruits and vegetables. The Warren County, Bowling Green City, and Allen County school systems were having trouble getting access to fresh fruits and vegetables for their students. So we were able to redistribute those 30,000 carrots for that one farmer to institutional sales throughout the Warren County area. So the next slide, what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about our partnerships and the work that we do. I'm going to briefly talk about what each group is, and then I'm going to talk about what our pandemic pivot was. So community farmers market. The strengths of a community farmers market is that it's an indoor market. It is year-round. That has really allowed our different vendors to really establish their businesses, expand their businesses, and we have a strong outreach program. So our outreach program includes accepting WIC, senior nutrition, SNAP, big red dollars through the university and the Fresh RX for Moms program. And then we have a strong double dollar program. In the next slide, you'll see that when the pandemic hit, we wanted to do two things. One is we wanted to remain open for our farmers. We have farmers who are farming for full-time income, multiple of them, and it was really, really important that we were able to keep the farmers market going. So because we have strong partnerships with the health department, we contacted them, they came out, they helped us figure out a way to not miss a single open day. We moved all of our vendors outside. We started social distancing and requiring masks. We did that before anybody else that was local was doing that. We were requiring those things. That required a lot of communication, a lot of paying attention to what was happening on the state level, a lot of communicating to our vendors and to our customers. And I will say that was very, very hard work. It wasn't fun most weeks, but we did what we had to do to stay open. The second thing we do, and I want to say that I believe this is the number one thing that Need More Acres did in response to the pandemic. And that is we prioritized having fresh food available on the table for sale for our supplemental nutrition program dollars. I didn't see a lot of people focusing on this, but my thought was the very reason we see people in poverty needing to use food banks or needing to use SNAP benefits at a large chain grocery store is because of times like this, times like pandemics, where consumers got more and more disconnected from the local food system. And so the very way that we needed to respond was that we needed to make sure that when people showed up with their PBD benefits when they were available, with their Fresh RX vouchers, with their SNAP card, with their WIC vouchers, that we had product there for them to sell, not just first thing in the morning, but all day. And that was just a really big priority that I think has paid off. We saw a 100% increase in our SNAP and PBT sales this year. So next slide. So Hotel Inc. is a local food pantry that they purchase a weekly delivery of fresh food from our farm. We've been doing this for 7 years. So every week we deliver fresh food that's in season for them to distribute in their food pantry. This has really been a focus of more like raw fruits and vegetables, and also getting those to people, but educating. So you can see in the picture, this is a picture of my daughter and one of our employees doing food sampling in the waiting room where people were waiting to go into the food pantry. On the next slide, during the pandemic, we had two opportunities with Hotel Inc. to kind of expand our partnership even further. One of them was to provide fresh and prepared meals. What we realized is there were people who were unable to cook for whatever reason, or let's say they were COVID positive, so they weren't feeling well. So we started doing some of that prep work on our farm. We have an on-farm certified kitchen. The second thing we did was we realized that people within a 1 mile radius of Hotel Inc., which is on the west side of Bowling Green, were having a limited, I'm seeing a question from Lillian. People on the west side of Bowling Green have limited access to fresh food. There's no grocery stores on that side of town. And so what we were able to do is through the school system, distribute fresh food to consumers in that area. So on the next slide, you can see the farm to school partnerships that we have. In the beginning, our farm to school partnership was the watermelons, delivering those each year. The second partnership we had with the school systems was a fresh fruit and vegetable snack program. And you can go to our Instagram, Facebook, and see lots of pictures of this, get information, our website. And then the last thing we did that we were really, really proud of was we started having tours. And we found that when the students can come to the farm and see the fresh food that we grow, that they're getting to have access to in the school system, they get more excited about it. We had planned on having about 4,000 students visit the farm last April and May, and all of that got canceled because of the pandemic. So on the next slide, you'll see several of the school systems that we work with helped us figure out what our response was going to be. For the Bowling Green school systems, we took the watermelons that we normally grow and actually increased the sales on those. We made that decision in May, so we were able to grow enough. We were distributing 2,000 watermelons to households that were being delivered by buses every other week to the Bowling Green City Schools students. We were also making side salads. You can see the little cups, and those were being distributed in the fresh food bags to the students. And all of this was done by the buses to the homes of the students. On the next slide, you can see the Allen County response. There were a couple different things we did with them. One, you can see on the left, is we did a weekly local food delivery to students who were on campus and then also at home. And then we did online through Zoom cooking demonstrations where they could prepare that food. The second thing we did was the veggie snacks you can see on the right side. Those got distributed to students that were doing at-home learning, like I said, delivered by the buses. In the next slide, you can see the Warren County Schools COVID response. This was pretty exciting. So we have not worked with Warren County Schools very much. So this was kind of really our first partnership with them. And it was also 8th graders, which middle schoolers tend to be one of the most difficult groups for us to create partnerships with, I should say. This was amazing. So a librarian contacted us. She had been reading Omnivore's Dilemma with the students for 7 to 8 years. She had never received questions from the students about, this is great, like it would be great if everybody could eat local, but what about people who can't afford it? What about people like me who don't have access? What about people like me who don't have transportation? And so we were able to dig into, through several Zoom classes with all of the 8th grade students, and dig into some of those questions and ask how local food can still be for students like them. And then at the end of the program, it was a 6-week program, we were able to deliver fresh bags of food to every student in 8th grade through Warren County Schools. So on the next slide, you'll see the Allen County Health Department, which is a huge partner of ours. They did 2 things. They reached out to us and they asked if, in the very beginning especially, would you be willing to provide fresh food to anybody who's diagnosed with COVID-19? So you can see on the right side of the screen, baskets of food that the health department director in Allen County came to our house to pick up to distribute to people who were diagnosed with COVID. And then later, because it was so many, we were delivering fresh food to people who, if they passed away, to their families. And that was a very important thing that we were doing, because we were saying, just because you are diagnosed with COVID-19 doesn't mean you're not loved and cared about by your community. And that was important in the beginning with the stigma of being diagnosed. The second thing you'll see is on the left-hand side, there's some snacks that were delivered every week to the core in Scottsville. This was a place that low-income students who did not have a place to go while they were doing online school could come during the day, and we were able to provide those fresh foods. And the Allen County Health Department paid for all of this food distribution. So on the next slide, one of my favorite things that we did as a farm is we launched the Farming, Culinary Arts, and Community Organizing Co-op for high schoolers. We've had 6 students who have worked on the farm. This was a Martin Luther King Day event that we did. The students learned farming skills, they learned how to process food, and they also learned how to work with the community and find out where we can deliver this food. They were actually the ones that developed that relationship with the Corps and have helped us find other avenues for our food, such as food pantries, delivering directly to seniors who are low income. And we're excited because that's actually going to expand, and all of that happened because of COVID. Next slide. So the medical center reached out pretty early on. We had been talking to them about doing some partnerships with people who are registered for their if they are diagnosed with diabetes and taking classes through the medical center, doing some kind of fresh food project with them. We reached out to WellCare, and WellCare offered funding for us to do 10 weeks of fresh food delivery to the homes of everyone that was signed up for those classes. That was 40. We had 40 participants who did that. So every week they would get a package of food like this, plus they were getting being checked in on at least twice a week by a registered dietitian. Next slide. This is an example of us working with the Warren County Public Library. They were driving a bus around that was providing Wi-Fi for students. And while they were doing that, they were also working with community partners to provide the students with snacks. And so on several occasions, we were able to come down to that library van that had the Wi-Fi available and hand out fresh and healthy veggie snacks. And the students loved it. They really did. People are surprised if kids really like vegetables, but they really do. Okay. So my last 2 points that I wanted to make, you can go to the next slide, is what I think COVID-19 will do for the future of agriculture in Kentucky is, number one, I think it's going to have us asking different questions. So I told you that we lost the ability to have 4,000 students come last April and May. We had actually partnered with Black Soils, Ashley Smith's on this call, to see if they could come down and provide educational experiences for these students. What we've discovered about these students is that oftentimes we will ask them, this is me, in this photo, I'm asking the students, do you know who your farmer is? And they're raising their hand and then they're saying, yes, you're our farmer. And that's great for them to know where their foods come from and to know that I'm their farmer. But what would be even better is if they thought that they could be farmers. And so that's where I really feel like a lot of the institutional sales need to bring along the future of future farmers, making institutional sales more secure long-term. So asking different questions about how we can get there. And then on the last slide, I think it's about knowing Kentucky eaters. I think it's about us really understanding how people eat. The reason why our farm has moved not away from a CSA, farmers market model, but why we've included the institutional sales, the prepared foods, the medically tailored meals, selling to food pantries, all of these different, it's because this is how the people in our community eat. So we're responding to their need as a consumer rather than saying, this is the food I grow and we need you to buy it. And I think that that's been really important. And I think that COVID-19 has really reminded us of the importance of that. So that's all I have. Thank you, Paul.
Michelle, I could listen to you all day. You're such an inspiration, the different things that you do and the heart that you have and the spirit in which you do it. I just love hearing you talk. I wish we had time to catch all of the Q&A questions. I do just want to touch on one quickly, and if you don't mind, if you would answer those in the Q&A box so everybody can see those and you can respond to them, because there's been some really good ones in there. But I just quickly, if you could touch on how do you make these connections with growers? Is it just based on your personal relationships, or have they reached out to you, or have you reached out to them? Is there a standard way, or is it just different all the time?
With the growers,
mm-hmm.
I think Nathan and I are naturally educators. We do on-farm events. We work with other organizations like yourself who work with farmers. We sit on several boards and groups that help us make those connections. I think just we're generally really want other people to be farming full time or taking on farming. So we're, we have people text us, call us, email us, getting to know the Mennonites in their community. We just genuinely enjoy doing that. So I think it just happens naturally.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And we appreciate, all of those connections that you try to make, because you don't just focus on your business, you do focus on elevating all of the local food system. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for joining us. And if we have time at the end, definitely want to bring you back for some other questions. But, for those watching, please check out the Q&A, and Michelle will put some answers in there on that. And excuse me, I want to introduce our next our next panelist here. And Michelle mentioned Ashley Smith, and she is our next speaker, and she's a founder of Black Soil. And you heard Michelle mention that organization. And it's an agribusiness that is dedicated to reconnecting Black Kentuckians with agriculture and really doing a lot to break down barriers for Black farmers so that they can thrive in this environment, in this industry. Ashley is actively involved in agritourism, farm-to-table dinners, workshops, multi-farm CSA, and many, many more activities in Central Kentucky. One of her many projects has been launching the Recipe Farmers Market at the Julietta Market in the Gray Line Station in downtown Lexington. Ashley, thank you so much for being part of this panel. And please tell us a little bit about your pandemic pivots.
All right, well, thank you so much, Cindy, and to our co-panelists today. It's so great being here for the Local Food Systems Summit. And on the next slide, I'll show you just a little bit of who we are, Black Soil, Our Better Nature. We are a co-founded agribusiness, myself along with Trevor Claiborne, aka Farmer Brown, the MC. And you see there the second generation to carry on this torch. Our Pudgies are, and the twins said, "Hi, Mommy." They're watching from home. I'm here at our fulfillment center. And together, since August of 2017, we've traveled across the state of Kentucky, starting in Hart County on Barber's Farm, where 4 of the 7 siblings have returned to farming on a 150-acre farm where they were formerly sharecroppers who purchased the land from the tenant farmer. Former tobacco, dairy, now they run the CSA, and they trusted and allowed us to pitch out an insane idea of bringing highly disconnected folks in our urban community deeper into our small, rural, often marginalized family farms across the state. So as we continue on in our presentation with our next slide, 2020, we really went into this new decade. I left working in the corporate world, working at Fayette Alliance. I left there in December of 2019 because 2020 was going to be my first full-time focused year of running the business as COO. And man, did we ever run this business. We started off as normal on the kind of presentation ramp that can take us, you know, what we think is a hibernation period, but really it's planting the seeds of furthering relationships that we then tap into later on in the year. And as we continued in our normal calendar of events with Farmer Brown the MC, starting in March with Fresh Urban Gardening Workshop, the shutdown quickly shifted our farm to table dinner with our Black Vegan Collective to doorstep delivery, and doorstep delivery of grow kits that allowed families in the early stages of the quarantine, in which we thought would only last a few weeks, that is extended now to almost a year. It allowed us to still be present with our end users. It allowed us to still be present when working with partnerships. So we continued in the new normal of distributing in partnership with the Fayette County Soil Conservation District, their education and outreach grant, facilitating over 100 grow kits distributed. We had 35 participants in our Fresh Up Urban Gardening Workshop that followed along a YouTube video series where we learned about watering and seeding and different types of growing mechanisms and techniques. Our Grow Hard Garden Challenge debuted with almost 70 participants growing from May until August, competing by presenting, these youth presented their materials, their multimedia reflections of their growing, and really planted a seed for our next generation. As we continue working through our presentation today, we want to focus on how we responded to COVID-19, a pandemic that unearthed to many, but for some, 2 pandemics, the racial unrest and uprisings throughout the community and the nation, and how folks were smacked in the face with job loss, evictions, health disparities, and inequities being blown out of the water. So on our next slide, we'll look at how in June we started building upon the 3 years at that point relationship building that we cultivated from East, Central, and West Kentucky with our farmers who cultivate specialty crops, seasonal produce, local meats, value-added products, who through agritourism, we were able to cultivate the brand awareness and the connections. Because we say food connects us and art tells the story of those connections. And so with our multi-farm CSA program, we launched in partnership with the Lyric Theater and Alfalfa Restaurant, our friends at Blue Estates, a multi-generational Black-owned farm in Madison County, became owners in the middle of, when the restaurant industry was shuttering. They opened up Alfalfa under new management, and together we shared storage space and were able to incubate what we thought was just, something that we were going to dip our toe in. And eventually we can quickly get back to doing farm tours, which we loved so much. But again, the pandemic informed us otherwise. And so we really stuck with it, and it led us to where we're sitting here today. Third time's a charm. We've been looking for a brick and mortar for almost 2 years without any luck. And the CSA and our pandemic pivot really forced our hand to move into a larger space, where I'll share a little bit more about the functions of our fulfillment center. But our multi-farm CSA really emphasized our vision. If our mission is to reconnect Black Kentuckians to their heritage and legacy in agriculture, we want that 1.4% of Black farmers and the less than 1% of culinary artists here in Lexington with market share and makers across the state to be able to aggregate their products. Again, emphasizing our vision and our mission that calls for collective responsibility and cooperative economics, and together increasing the market share and those market opportunities. We average per farm, and we were sourcing from around 10 farms on a regular basis, about $350 per transaction per farm. And we added more folks as we continued on through July and August, and we moved into our fulfillment center and said, this pandemic pivot is not going anywhere. So again, to emphasize on our ability as a social enterprise, an LLC with a charitable arm held at the Lyric Theater, we have a deep commitment to the social good of those around us, leveraging our relationships within our agricultural industry and sector. So folks were able to make donations, tax deductible donations, buy in equity into the Black Soil Company by purchasing pay it forward shares. We were able, we'll share a little bit more about our partnership with the Lee Initiative and Maker's Mark, but because of them, we were able to provide 12 single mothers, expectant mothers, much like the model that Need More Acres and WellCare have established with the Fresh RX Moms program, as well as Community Farm Alliance having a large leadership role in that program as well. We piloted that program here in Lexington with Blue Estates farmer Tiffany Belfield Elamine, who is also a birth professional, by using that farm product as a way to, as we always recognize, the health disparities and health inequities faced within the African American community. We also immersed our end users, our shareholders, those who were paying for their shares or those who are receiving their shares at no cost at all, with the opportunity to increase their cultural proficiency with our kids from the Lyric Theater, have them better connected to the land, not only through agriculture, but environmental education, broadening that worldview as well, through partnerships with LFUCG, through Live Green Lexington, Alice Hilton. So here you see on the right-hand side, a share from Cleves Family Market. In the top left, you see a share from Made in Kentucky Farm out of Warren County. Cleves Family Market is based in Hart and LaRue County. And then you see our COVID safe practices when we're assembling shares and doing distribution. And that is when we were at the Lyric Theater. Again, a dear partner. Every month, we can advance the slide. We provide around 20 up to 40 shares to families through the Lyric Theater's Family Art at Home program. So again, working not only with farmers, but we take the farm product and we get it to the culinary artists that we work with. And so through our Black Soil Charitable Fund, Pay It Forward, donations through people purchasing gift cards with Black Soil, we were able to work, again, we focus on the socially and financially vulnerable in our community, ensuring that they are connected with Kentucky farm products, building relationships with farmers, culinary artists, and makers. So we were able to partner with Chef Angelia Drake From the Heart Catering and Greenhouse 17, as well as Chef Ramon Hargans and the Jerk Lex and Arbor Youth Services. Then when we focus on our agritourism, even with the COVID-19 pivot, that Dine for a Cause and uplifting folks who were doing the work in the middle of responding to the pandemic, such as Community Action Council, Step by Step, Food Chain, and Dine for Good. So we'll continue advancing in our presentation today with our next slide. And I mentioned earlier about working with our partners out of Louisville with the Lee Initiative, who sprung into action nationally and feeding out of work restaurant workers. And they also had a second phase of their what was known as their restaurant relief reboot program. So in partnership again with Maker's Mark, we again activated our vision and our mission of cultivating, being on the lookout. Oftentimes people ask, what is it that you do? And simple enough, we match our farmers who have given us their trust, when oftentimes others in the industry and sector want that trust so much. We have hard-earned that trust with our Kentucky Black farmers across the state. And it is our honor to provide them with these opportunities by cultivating and seeking out market share to increase for the 1.4% that we represent. So in connecting our small scale farmers with our institutions, something that we were starting to tap into right before COVID-19 hit through Cleve's Family Market, especially highlighting them. We've been working with, again, this LaRue County-based farm since May of 2018. They are our exclusive signature meat provider, local and freezer meat. So again, working across the state in Lincoln County with Miller's Farm, Cleve's Family Market, Made in Kentucky Farm, Laurel County African American Heritage Center, Stoner View, we were able to bring together a relief and help bring about rebooting these small, locally owned farm-to-table restaurants that received support from the Lee Initiative and Maker's Mark in the initial shutdown. And as we timidly reopened, in the summer of 2020, we were able to connect them with the Kentucky farm products. So we sourced Pints and Union in Southern Indiana, for Peg's Beer Lounge in Louisville, FOCO at Logan Street Market, also located in Louisville, the 2 Great Bagel locations, Woodland Avenue and Boston Road, and the Wrigley Tap Room in Corbin, Kentucky. And we can just transition to our next slide here. And so what we have always talked about and always dreamed about was a place to call our own. We were a home-based business working nights and weekends on this vision and mission. Our co-founder still works his public job. Again, I focus on this work full time. And as we scaled up and grew, we knew that we had to house this work. And we had a commitment to say that before you plant that seed, where is it going to end up? That seed to shelf commitment. And our fulfillment center really does bring that to life. Our ability to store, freeze, refrigerate, and wholesale Kentucky farm product. Our competitive edge is now that we can recruit farmers from all 120 counties, especially through our retail storefront at the Julietta Market and Gray Line Station, a $5 million infill and redevelopment project that transformed the former Lextran bus station into an open air market with mixed use entrepreneurial enterprises. So along the streetscape, you have beautiful, signature flagship businesses such as North Limestone Coffee and Donuts, Cocoa and Forage. And then inside of that, you have a nonprofit managed project called the Julietta Market. And that again really focuses on emphasizing equity, inclusion in developing and incubating small people of color owned businesses. And so at the Julietta Market, we have the recipe, as Cindy mentioned briefly. And as I wrap up today, I just want to share with you how we have gone from being an agritourism business with a long-term vision of seeking out a place to cement and base our small scale, oftentimes overlooked, yet innovative and creative in so many ways, Kentucky Black farmers. And it's brought us here over the past 3 years. So this summit always kind of serves as a marker for our progress when we first presented in 2018 to now where we've grown. So let's check out our next slide here so I can orient myself as to where I am in my presentation. Again, bringing it home here in Lexington-Fayette County and really, really bringing it full circle. When we first started this business in 2018, we had to go outside of our home county of Fayette County here in Lexington, because we were remiss and hard pressed to find an active Black farm. I was very familiar with our hamlets, these rural settlements. They're scattered actually throughout urban and rural communities here in the county, but they are post-Civil War settlements where former enslavers parceled out and made their former enslaved individuals purchase the land in which they toiled for no compensation. Next slide, please. And then we want to highlight and celebrate this progress. In 2018, I could not sit here and talk to you about Coleman Crest, Green Landing, Simply Made, Slack Market Farm, or Silver Springs Farm, Equine and Vineyard. But it's by the faithfulness that farming teaches us and has taught me as an industry outsider that people love to remind me that I am, and I'm fine with that. Because again, with agriculture, you can do pretty much anything. You can come in and help people market and be a liaison and a matchmaker. As a social scientist, that's what I love to do, helping groups of people move from point A to point B. And so again, as we conclude our presentation here with you today, I do want to celebrate these farmers across the state, especially these individuals here in Lexington-Fayette County, who we are working strongly to build up to impact our local food system even more. Coleman Crest, a 132-year-old Black-owned farm located in Utteringtown. Green Landing, located in Cadentown. Simply Made activates our shared history and love of hemp and pushes us back into understanding that the enslaved men of Kentucky, much through the words of our beloved Henry Clay, were able to bring such abundant wealth and affluence to the ready available supply of enslaved labor. Slack Market Farm, a raw milk and halal meat share stakeholder in Athens. Silver Springs Farm, Equine and Vineyard, Kentucky's only Black-owned vineyard, located in Bragtown. So these hamlets are jewels. They are underutilized, and we look forward to continuing to emphasize not only these farms, but the over 60 Kentucky Black farms, chefs, and makers that we represent. We appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley. I so enjoyed listening to this and hearing about operations I didn't know very much about, just a little bit about the names. I am curious, you mentioned the Julietta Market, and that's one way to support your community of farmers. Are there other ways that customers and consumers can support and plug in with your community of growers? And I am going to drop some questions in the chat too for you that I hope you don't mind answering.
Okay, great. That's no problem. So when I think about ways to support, obviously coming to Julietta Market and helping spread the word. We do accept EBT, and thanks to the help of CFA, Bluegrass Double Dollars will be launching in April. You can support us by helping get the word out for Nourish Lexington every Wednesday, and checking out our website and helping our farmers through supporting our weekly farm share program, which is a year-round CSA offering. We are partnering with the Lexington Public Library, Ethereal Brewing, Wise Bird Cider, and Blue Stallion as pickup locations for our 2021 season, peak season from June until October. And so we look forward to continuing to connect within our industry. We're really grateful for the opportunity to build relationships with so many of you here on the call today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And fair warning to everyone listening, we're going to bleed over into the break because we definitely want to hear from our last grower. We wanted to give her enough time because she's got some amazing things happening too. So our third panelist today is Maggie Dungan, and she's the owner of Salad Days Farm, which is a certified organic operation in Central Kentucky. She's third-party GAP certified and uses intensive, sustainable practices to produce that fresh, high-quality vegetables and other products like herbs and microgreens. And between all of these activities, the harvesting, the washing, the packing, managing the greenhouse, seeding, weeding, value-added processing, all of that, you might see her at a local farmer's market or in her new farm store. And Maggie, I hope that wasn't too much of a spoiler about your farm store, but if you would please tell us about some of the pandemic pivots that you made this last season.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I don't have a fancy PowerPoint to share with everybody and that you have to look at me. But I certainly encourage everybody to stalk my social media. There's tons of pictures and, you get a great idea of what the farm's like. But as Cindy said, we have a farm here in Woodford County. I grow about 4 or 5 acres. We have 5 high tunnels. So there's year-round growing. And so a little history about what we were going into with COVID and the pandemic. So in 2019, we sold a lot of wholesale, especially to UK dining, our local public schools, and then a variety of restaurants and institutions. We partner with Local Food Connection, who's now part of Creation Gardens, or What Chefs Want, which last year's summit I was talking about that. So here we are. But so going into 2020, my plan for my farm was to double down on my wholesale and have more than 50% of my sales come from that, just expand those markets. And, so it's making that shift. And then, the stuff hit the fan and that wasn't going to happen. And the biggest problem initially we ran into is we had all this lettuce already planted for UK for their dining service. It was already in the ground, thousands of pounds, and schools shut down, and it was ready to go. And at that time, our farmers markets hadn't really started up. And so instead of cutting our losses, we just decided, okay, what are we going to do? So I just kind of set up a little thing in my packing shed and just threw something up on Facebook that like, hey, I have lettuce, come down, totally no contact, just put your money in the basket. And I didn't really think anybody would show up, but somebody was there within 10 minutes and it became really popular. And so after 1 or 2 days, I realized, okay, well, this isn't GAP and I can't do this anyway, but let's build an on-farm store. And there's nothing like having a fire under you to get something done quickly. And we built in our barn, we kind of sectioned off an area and put in some coolers and just, it's very open. And we have obviously our produce in there. And then I was able to bring in other producers' products. So we have local honey and hot sauce and bread and elderberry syrup and eggs, so just more options for people come. So again, I didn't think it'd be like super successful just because our location's not bad, but it's kind of out of people's way. And I was proved wrong. I think a lot of the appeal is that it's open every single day, 8 to 8, at people's schedules, they can pop in there, it's all contactless, it's all on the honor system. So you either just put money in the box or Venmo. And, so people felt safe. It's not going into Kroger. And I think a lot of times it gave people an excuse to leave the house. And as you know, it's a nice drive out here. So I'm glad we did it. And another pivot that I would like to bring up is that our farmers markets, especially Franklin County Farmers Market that we're part of, they adapted and were resilient and started doing like a online ordering, and customers come in and pick up. And they did that on Thursdays and then also had on Saturdays, and it was wildly popular. So that created just like a whole nother market for us. And we were luckily very busy, and people wanted to still support local. And we really felt that in our community, and talking with other farmers and, kind of almost across the country, people still sought out local food, especially like during these times. So, going into this year, we're building more of that retail back up, just kind of because, the demand was there. I hope people still come to the farmers market, when their lives get a little busier. I hope people still support the farm store. I've definitely seen it throughout the winter. I might only have lettuce in there and people are still coming. And then, I think, it depends on your style of farming and what your farm is like, and, certainly how COVID has affected it. And we've seen with the larger farms, the food rotting in the field. But I think a lot of the smaller farms and the diversified farms growing, a diversity of products, we're farmers, we're resilient. We have to learn how to change. If your tomato seedlings die, okay, what are we going to do? So I think, it's a test for everybody, and it was certainly not easy. And, but I've seen a lot of growth, and a lot of resilience, just period, in our farming community, which is great. And the support from the consumer. So I'll leave time for questions, whether for me or the other panelists. It's a beautiful day out, so I don't want to take everybody's time up.
Great. Thanks, Maggie. So going forward, do you think that you'll have sort of the same split across marketing channels, or will you focus a little bit more on your farm market, or will you go back to more heavier presence at farmers market, or do you think you'll focus more on that institutional market when it comes back?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're still keeping all of those markets, the institution. We have plans to sell to UK in the fall. I have plans to sell to the local schools, certainly during the summer. We did a lot of the summer feeding program. But we are adding more farmers market and building up the farm store. People want the food, so let's grow it for them.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think two things that I have learned today through our panel. Number one is I think each of our growers that have been featured have more than 24 hours in their days, because they are accomplishing so much and doing so much. And the other thing is I'm so impressed that it's not just about your operation, that you really are building a community. Because Maggie, you didn't really mention all of the work you do with local growers, of all the things you're bringing in and selling at your farm store, that it's not just your products, but you're also elevating lots of other community members. And I think, certainly with Michelle and with Ashley, that's, all of the folks featured on the panel have been doing that. It's really about building up the entire community. And that is so impressive. And I apologize. I wish we had a full day to talk to each of the growers and highlight the things they're doing and the improvements they're making on their operations, but also for agriculture at large. Please continue to put your questions in the chat and in the Q&A. Check out all of their social media and their different resources that we dropped into the chat. These are really model operations of things that we've seen today. I want to thank everyone. We are into our break time, and like I said, we could take the entire break answering more questions. But I do want to say thank you so much to Michelle and to Ashley and to Maggie for sharing their experience. And I hope you all have a great season. I would like to close out with one question for each of you, and that's, what is the thing you're most excited about for this 2021 season? So let's go in reverse order. Maggie, and then Ashley, and then Michelle, and then we'll let everybody take a short break and come back for our next panel.
I'm looking forward to just growing more food, and just seeing all the people support it. We're, growing more food literally in our farm, and I'm anxious to see how well it goes. And I'm hopeful that this trend of supporting local is going to hopefully stick.
All right, great.
I'd say I echo that. Working and building more relationships with farmers across the state, that's what really gets me excited. Thank you.
I think so. In this past year, my son decided to become a full-time farmer. So that's really exciting to think about, and hoping that and we're seeing so much more interest in like the high school age group, seeing them excited about it. And then something I tell Ashley all the time is, I think she's redefining what a farmer is. Farmers aren't just people who plant in the ground and harvest and do those tasks. There's so much that goes into farming. And so I think about that with the younger generation too, just having them having good examples of what it looks like to be part of the farming community.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much. And our panelists, if you don't mind staying on and answering some of the Q&A questions, if you feel comfortable dropping those answers in. And we'll go ahead and take a short break then and come back for our next panel at 11:10. And thank you so much, panelists. It was great to hear from you, and I love watching and seeing the things that you're doing. So thank you so much.